Hello, everyone, and welcome. Some of the stories we have for you right now. The life and legacy of Gene Hackman, investigating the mystery surrounding the actor's death.
In my book, we're going to be winners.
One of the leading actors of his generation.
The tributes, the legacy, and what police found in his home.
The evidence is irrefutable. The progress is being made.
Canada's border pushed in D.C. as the clock ticks down on the tariff threat.
I think the shock of everything has finally hit me.
Grief and relief over the landfill discovery of possible human remains.
I am just so embarrassed, I think, really, by what my country has become.
Plus why some Americans in Canada are cutting ties to the U.S.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
The death of the highly respected actor Gene Hackman is suspicious enough, police say, to require a thorough investigation. The 95-year-old was found dead along with his wife, classical pianist Betsy Arakawa, and the family dog in their Santa Fe, New Mexico home. A police search warrant says the three had been dead for a while, with the front door to their home open. Maintenance workers alerted security. Hackman's body was found in a mudroom near the kitchen. His wife was on the bathroom floor with pills scattered on the countertop. A dog was found dead in the bathroom closet. As to the theory of a gas leak, here is what the local sheriff said.
Obviously, it's not. I wouldn't say odd, but it's not normal to find two people deceased in a residence. That's concerning. And then there was also a dog that was in a kennel that was also found deceased. We don't know the cause of that, obviously, but you know, on our experience and working on cases like this, that is a possibility.
Now, the investigation is obviously ongoing, but it's important for us to remember the man and his larger-than-life on-screen legacy. Here's CTV's Scott Lightfoot.
I expect and demand your very best.
For more than 5 decades, he was a star of the screen, but Gene Hackman started his life as a child of divorce who lied about his age to join the Marines and then worked a number of different jobs just to pay for auditions.
Every day was like a new challenge. It was going out and trying to get that job and doing those auditions, and I loved it.
The aspiring actor joined the Pasadena Playhouse, where he met another young hopeful named Dustin Hoffman. The two were voted least likely to succeed.
We're going to have ourselves a time, boy!
But it didn't take long for success to come. His first of 5 Oscar nominations garnered for his role in Bonnie and Clyde.
I don't buy that, Irv. The stuff is in that car.
1971's The French Connection would get him his first Oscar win.
The prestige involved with an Oscar means that you have been in a couple of films that have made some money and that they can take a chance on you.
On Independence Day.
And Hackman kept capitalizing on the chances he was given, winning an Oscar 21 years later for his role in Unforgiven. But Hackman says he felt the tough guy roles limited his range.
We're cast so close to type in films that you can only do so much within your own persona.
He created the film persona of an iconic nemesis to Superman.
You were great in your day, Superman.
And though a huge star, Hackman said he always liked the idea of Hollywood, but never fully embraced it.
I guess movie star is Robert Redford and Paul Newman and kind of guys that I idolized or visualized when I was a real young guy.
In the 1980s, Hackman and his then-girlfriend, later wife, classical pianist Betsy Arakawa, moved to New Mexico. He would continue his film career. In his later films, Hackman took on comedic roles.
Comedy's harder because, you know, it isn't arbitrary. If they don't laugh, it doesn't work.
The problem is...
And in 2004, citing the stress of the craft as being a hazard to his health, Hackman retired from acting, for the most part living out the rest of his life out of the spotlight. Gene Hackman was 95. Scott Lightfoot, CTV News, Toronto.
All right, let's bring in CTV film critic Richard Krause. And Richard, such an acclaimed actor, Gene Hackman told early on, however, forget it, you won't make it in this business. So How can it be? Tell us the story behind that.
Well, after he left the Marines, he struggled to find a direction in life. He tried journalism. That didn't work. And being from California, he had always loved movies, so he decided to try acting. And he signed up to the Pasadena Playhouse to take classes and received the absolute worst marks they had ever given a student to date. He was discouraged, but he thought he'd try a new start in a new town. He went to New York City, auditioned for Broadway in live television, but he had a side gig as a waiter at a Howard Johnson's. And one day, his teacher from the Pasadena Playhouse came in and said, "You see, I told you, you'll never make it. You're a waiter. You're not an actor." And he said that moment was the hinge in his career where he said, "I will do anything to prove those people wrong. I will lie, cheat, whatever it takes to get an audition and to get an acting job." And then 5 years later, he was accepting an Academy Award for playing Popeye Doyle in The French Connection.
Right, and the rest is history, Richard. You know, he called it a day on his acting career early on, though, and then he disappeared. So why? And then what did he do afterwards?
Well, he wrote a few novels, a few historical fiction novels, and he did some narration for a series on Vietnam, but he really laid it low. He did what people in show business always say they're going to do, which is retire and not reappear. Johnny Carson did it, but very few other people have pulled it off in the same way that Gene Hackman did. He retired from a very public life, making 1 or 2 movies a year, to enjoying his life in New Mexico. So a remarkable, retirement that went along with a remarkable career.
All right, Richard, thank you. And now there is an investigation by police. Okay, March the 4th is the date for U.S. tariffs to go into effect unless Canadian officials can persuade the Americans and ultimately Donald Trump to reconsider. Today, a contingent of ministers and Canada's fentanyl czar were trying to do just that in Washington, talking border security and highlighting Canada's efforts to curb the flow of drugs. CTV's Judy Trin has been following the twists and turns. And Judy, is this country doing enough?
Well, Sandy, Canada is responsible for less than 1% of the total fentanyl that is seized at the U.S. border, and that number is going down, but Donald Trump doesn't appear to be listening. A full court press from Canada's top security officials responsible for the border, the Mounties, and fentanyl. They have a message to deliver to the American border czar that Canada is stopping fentanyl from being smuggled into the U.S.
The evidence is irrefutable. The progress is being made. In my view, any test that was put on this country, on Canada, in terms of showing progress and meeting standards for the border, I believe those have been met.
On the Canadian border, there are now more drug-sniffing dogs, while Black Hawk helicopters track suspicious activity. In a span of 40 days, the Mounties have also made 524 arrests and seizures across Canada, including more than 46 kilograms of fentanyl and more than 15,700 pills.
And the result speaks for itself. 47 kilograms of fentanyl, over 15,000 pills, not strictly fentanyl, but other pills as well. 122 firearms and multiple arrests, over 524 arrests. So that's a success.
Less than 0.2% of illegal fentanyl seized in the U.S. comes from Canada. American officials also say that in the past month, that amount has dropped by an additional 97%. This morning, President Donald Trump posted that tariffs are coming anyway on March 4th because fentanyl kills about 100,000 Americans a year. Later, he said other nations should block fentanyl from getting into the U.S.
The country should not be allowing those drugs to come into the United States of America, and we're not going to allow it to happen. So that goes on the 4th of March.
If Trump is unconvinced by the evidence, the Prime Minister says Canada will be ready to hit back.
If on Tuesday there are unjustified tariffs brought in on Canada, we will have an immediate and extremely strong response, as Canadians expect.
Canada has a plan to retaliate with tariffs on $155 billion worth of American goods. Sandy, that's a plan that more than 70% of Canadians support.
Okay. All right, Judy, thank you. Now, trade, tariffs, and security guarantees for Ukraine were front and center when Donald Trump welcomed British Prime Minister Keir Starmer to the White House today. You saw a shot of the two men in Judy's report. Now, that is a consequential and hugely important bilateral meeting and part of a concerted charm offensive by EU leaders. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon joins us now. All right, Joy, meetings and briefings, long meetings between the British Prime Minister and the U.S. President. How did it go?
Well, Sandy, it seems that flattery can work. First the French president, now the British Prime Minister, who clearly charmed President Trump. Keir Starmer is looking for security protection for Ukraine as Trump pushes for a peace deal with Russia. President Zelensky will be here tomorrow to sign an agreement that will give the U.S. access to its mineral wealth. Britain said it's ready. We'll put boots on the ground, planes in the air. But he wants America to have its back. He wants assurances should Russia attack again, and says that the aggressor must not be rewarded. Take a listen.
They don't need much help. They can take care of themselves very well. You know what? No, it sounds like it's evasive, but it's not evasive. You know, the British have been incredible soldiers, incredible military, and they can take care of themselves. But if they need help, I'll always be with the British, okay? I'll always be with them.
And he always will be with him, one would assume, because he loves the idea of royalty. And Donald Trump, in fact, got an invitation from the king. Now, will that go a long way to sweeten the deal?
Oh, you bet. You know, this is all quite tricky, but since Trump has sided with Russia, this invitation from King Charles to a state dinner, it's all part of this diplomatic charm offensive. Trump is a great admirer of the Queen and the British royal family. Listen to this exchange.
He's a beautiful man, a wonderful man, and we appreciate it. I've known him, gotten to know him very well, actually. First term and now second term. Perhaps you'd like to say what that very important paragraph.
Yes, so this is a letter from His Majesty the King. It's an invitation for a second state visit. This is really special. This has never happened before. This is unprecedented.
An invite from royalty, not a bad opening, Sandy, to butter up this very unpredictable president.
Fascinating. Okay, Joy, thanks so much. Controversial social media influencers Andrew and Tristan Tate arrived in the U.S. today after Romania lifted a travel ban on them.
There we go. Andrew, how are you?
The U.S.-British duo was charged with trafficking minors and money laundering, among other crimes. Andrew Tate is a self-described misogynist with millions of followers online. The Romanian foreign minister had previously said that a Trump official has shown interest in the brothers' case. Well, this has been a difficult day for families of two women murdered by Winnipeg serial killer Jeremy Skibitsky after possible human remains were discovered in a landfill site north of the city. CTV's Alex Karpa now with what the victims' families are saying.
All I could think about is I want my mom. No one should go through any type of heartbreak without their mom.
The families of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron emotional today after the discovery of potential human remains at Manitoba's Prairie Green Landfill.
That scary movie we've been living for the last couple years has become a reality.
The search of the landfill began in December after family and Indigenous leaders pushed to search this area for the women murdered by convicted serial killer Jeremy Skibitsky.
Although it's a good thing that we found the remains, it's also very, very hard. We're going to continue fighting. No family, no person should go through what we went through.
Skibitsky was convicted last year of 4 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison in the deaths of Myron, Harris, Rebecca Contois, and an unidentified victim named Buffalo Woman.
Our stolen sisters deserve to be found, and they deserve to be honored, and they deserve to be laid to rest with dignity.
Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew hopes the discovery could serve as vindication for the families.
There should be a process if this is one of the loved ones of these families to provide identification, or if this is going to take us in a different direction, then we need to be open to that possibility too.
Premier Kinew said the identification process could take a couple of weeks. weeks. Activity here at the Prairie Green landfill site was paused on Wednesday following the discovery, but has since continued on Thursday. The families of Myron and Harris have asked for privacy at this time. Alex Karpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Coming up, cutting ties with the U.S.
Every last one of us in our family is like chained to the United States, and we don't want to be.
The sudden spike in Americans in Canada giving up their citizenship. A revealing snapshot today of Ottawa's stance on immigration as new data shows a sharp spike in deportations. Between January and November of last year, Canada deported 7,300 people, a 95% increase over 2022. More than three-quarters of the removals were due to refugee claims being rejected. The government has budgeted more money for deportations this year. Well, we've heard talk since Donald Trump's inauguration about Americans wanting to become Canadians. Now, one family living in BC is ready to walk the walk, and immigration lawyers say the trend is real. CTV's Andrew Johnson is looking into this. And Andrew, how easy is it to renounce and apply?
Sandy, it's actually pretty complicated, time-consuming, and expensive. But one family says they are now embarrassed to be American and willing to do whatever it takes. Jennifer Doxey and her family live on Vancouver Island. She grew up in the U.S. Midwest, met her husband down there, who is a dual citizen, and they decided to raise their family in Canada. That was almost 2 decades ago, and she calls her experience in this country amazing.
I came to Canada in search of that lifestyle, and I found it here. And so, it was kind of at that moment that it occurred to me that I think possibly my American dream was the Canadian dream.
Doxey says she wants nothing to do with the United States after Donald Trump's re-election and threats toward Canada.
I hear Donald Trump come on television and say that he would like to make Canada the 51st state, and this just infuriated me.
She's now looking into renouncing her U.S. citizenship, and so are her husband and 2 daughters. But it can be a process that takes months, including immigration filings, tax submissions, an interview, and the cost is much higher than in most countries. The U.S. charges about $3,400 Canadian per person. But one immigration lawyer says right now he's seeing a 50% spike in requests about renouncing.
Making sure that you are fully confident that this is what you want to do is definitely very important. It's a major life decision, and it's not something that should be taken lightly.
It's also a decision that is final. There's no going back later in life and deciding you want to be American again. Jennifer Doxey and her family say they have 100% confidence their future is in Canada for good. Sandy.
Andrew, thanks. Now, a pop superstar has a trip into space in her future. Katy Perry will blast off on board a Blue Origin rocket with a star-studded all-female cast. Journalists Gail King and Lauren Sanchez will also join the 10-minute flight this spring. CTV National News is back in a moment. Just 1 week before Prime Minister Trudeau steps down, Manitoba became the first province to join the federal pharmacare system, raising questions about the future of the program. CTV's Rachel Aiello joins us now. Okay, Rachel, why is Manitoba the first province, and why now?
Sandy, it may not be surprising that Manitoba, where an NDP government is in power, is the first province to sign on, given the pharmacare plan stemmed from the now-defunct NDP Liberal Supply and Confidence Pact. Today, the federal and provincial governments announced that through a $219 million agreement, Manitobans will be the first to be offered improved access to diabetes medications such as insulin and test strips, as well as oral contraceptives, IUDs, and the morning after pill. Though, because the province already offers free contraceptives, the deal will allow Manitoba to expand access to menopause medications.
We all know that when women, girls, folks have full autonomy over their own bodies and their reproductive choices, our communities thrive.
But those struggling to afford these drugs now will have to wait until June. That's when coverage is expected to start, and it's also likely after the next federal election. The Conservatives have called this a radical plan that could compromise private drug coverage, putting pressure on the Liberals to get more deals done soon, or risk the entire effort being scrapped by a future government.
And we want to get it done as quickly as possible, not because of politics, but because people are suffering.
British Columbia has signaled its intent to ink an official agreement too. But getting buy-in across the country for the first phase of pharmacare remains uncertain. The health minister didn't say today when deals with the other provinces may be done. Sandy?
All right, Rachel. Well, a birthday girl with 105 reasons to celebrate is raving about how she marked the milestone at her long-term care home.
You never think you're going to make 105, but I did.
Britain's Hilda Jackson says she owes her long life partly to her love of dancing. Voters in Ontario head to the polls today in a snap winter election. Doug Ford is looking to secure his third majority government, and most recent polls show him with a pretty comfortable advantage. CTV's John Venavalle-Rao is in Toronto outside Conservative Party headquarters. And John, it's not over until it's over, but set the scene for us. What's going on where you are?
Well, we managed to get inside, and right behind me, that's the stage where Doug Ford tonight hopes to give his victory speech. The Progressive Conservatives here feeling pretty confident that they will get that third straight majority. As you mentioned, this was a snap election. Ontario wasn't supposed to have an election for another year, but Doug Ford said he wanted to go to the voters and get a strong mandate to take aggressive action against Donald Trump and to spend billions and billions of dollars to counteract the effect of potential tariffs. What's a big question going to be tonight is the voter turnout. The advanced polls were actually quite low. Just 6% voted in advanced polling. Last time we had an election in 2022, the voter turnout was an all-time low, 44%. Some are wondering whether we may even see it lower than that today with a winter election and a campaign that struggled to get attention with just so much other news going on, Sandy.
Yeah. Okay, well, John, if the polls play out as we anticipate that they will, then what happens to the race for second place?
Well, that might be the interesting contest. The NDP here have been the official opposition for the last 7 years, ever since the Liberals got wiped out when Doug Ford took power back in 2018. So the question is, will the new Liberal leader, Bonnie Crombie, be able to take the Liberals and get that official opposition status, take it away from the NDP? The Liberals have not had official party status here in Ontario since 2018 when they had that wipeout. So we'll be keeping a close eye on how those results come in for both the Liberals and the NDP tonight. Both those parties, the leaders of those parties, it's their first time as leaders of those parties going into a provincial election.
Okay, John, thanks so much for this. And thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Omar is here later, and Heather will be here tomorrow. Have a nice evening. Be well. Bye for now.